Hello, Space Junkies, and welcome to What a Piece of Junk episode number 97. I can't believe how close we are to episode number 100. I am your agreeable host, Scott Botman, and I wouldn't have gotten this close to episode number 100 without the assistance of my original Wookiee co pilot, Mr. Miracle himself, our very own Dave Filcloni, the man of 1,000 nicknames, Mr. Nathan Miracle. Nathan, how's it going?
It is going very confusingly. It's time change day here in the part of the world where we do that for whatever reason we do that.
We do that for the simple fact of we've always done it that way. At least we've
Yeah.
always done it that way in living memory.
hmm
There was plenty of America that existed before time changes.
Well, as a matter of fact, there was plenty of America that existed before time zones.
Yeah.
Each individual city had their own time, so it might be 3 minutes different in New York versus Pittsburgh or what have you. And once we got to where we communicated much quicker, that got real confusing real fast.
Yeah. But I could do without time changes. Time zones, that's probably a good idea at this point in human evolution. But if somebody out there is a politician that really does want to make America great again, they should get rid of time changes. Now, I know we tried this in the 1970s. That's just to tie it all back into Star Wars, which was huge in the 70s. And it didn't take so well. So instead of always being on daylight savings time, we should always be on standard time.
Perhaps Imperial Standard Time.
That's right. Or
Yeah,
even better, metric time, the time of freedom.
I don't think Palpatine's going to go for that.
He won't, and all the senators that don't care about hearing the debate about time zones and time changes will just turn off the light on their desk to show that they are no longer listening to what I am saying.
Well, perhaps it's nighttime at their local time. Yeah, they're still on. Uh, well, that wouldn't be Chandrillan. Mon Mothma's on Chandrillan time. On Mon Cal time.
That's it. Yes, totally. Well, anyway, we are here to discuss Star Wars Andor, which isn't a representation of time change, but it is a representation of tone change for most of the Star Wars stories that have come before it. And in my opinion, all the better for it, because this has been quite the compelling first season of Star Wars Andor. And Nathan, you were saying just the other day that this episode 9 may be your most favorite episode yet.
Absolutely.
So before we jump into the 5 questions, maybe summarize that for us a little. What was it about this episode that made you be all like, "Wow, this is just awesome"?
The ending was just
Ah,
stellar. The everything led up to one particular line, and I've talked in previous episodes about how I felt. This episode really told more than showed. This episode showed. It didn't
yes.
tell, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as we get into our favorite things about this episode. Um, but yeah, the fact that it didn't hold our hands and say, "This is exactly what's happening," it let us figure out what was going on. Was just stellar.
Yeah, excellent. All right, well, we can go ahead and jump right into it with question number 1. What did you like most about this episode? For me, the answer is the stuff that I just alluded to with Mon Mothma in the Senate. I've really enjoyed Mon Mothma's arc throughout this whole season so far, and seeing her talk with Takolma again about the banking situation and basically having to do rebellion through spreadsheets was pretty cool. But I also really liked the subtle terror that Kolma was able to evoke from his lines and facial expressions when he was dropping hints and then eventually saying, covering up this 400,000 credit with expenditure that was there and then disappeared isn't that hard to do until they start auditing everybody's account. And then he just flatly and scarily says, which is coming. Because he knows that the Empire is basically going to make a big power play grab and be like, we're going to audit all of the rich people's accounts, or maybe just all accounts in general, so that the empire can have the money that it needs to run its war machine. And so it was a nice, subtle commentary about how sometimes we want to punish the rich, eat the rich, right? And then sometimes we have to understand that those rich people and powerful people face their fair share of government scrutiny, and sometimes even more so, even when they are actually the good guys, as is the case here, where Mon Mothma wants to talk about personal freedoms and the right to privacy, and everyone getting to make their own decisions instead of being crushed under the heel of a fascist empire. So it isn't just always the socialists and the nationalists out there who want to make sure that the rich people pay their fair share of taxes. Sometimes it's the fascists and the crazy over the top capitalist crew that want to go out there and seize private funds to use for government nefarious purposes. It's never so black and white. It's never so cut and dried, which is the overall theme of Cassian's show. So Star Wars Andor bringing it home with financial terror.
Yeah, when you fill out your tax return, if you do it online, sometimes they'll tell you, the chances of you being audited are low or medium or what have you, and all of that's based on how much stuff do you have in your tax
Mhm.
return? Is it just I've got a W-2, I pay my taxes, move on? You have a very low chance of being audited. You're secretly funding a rebellion against the empire, you have a much higher chance of being audited.
Oh,
The
I'm
fact
glad you
that
said that before I filed this year's taxes. I mean, yes, yes.
but Mon Mothma's doing all these things that make her an irritant to the Emperor. In a governmental system where the Emperor can just say, "Yeah, we're going to audit that." That's dangerous.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, Nathan, what did you like most about this episode?
Never more than 12.
Mm,
The
yes.
final line of the episode, because we see everything that's going on in the prison. We see all the discord that's sown. We see uh, uh, Andy Serkis's character telling everybody, no, no, I only have this much time, and then I'm out. I'm not going to help you with anything. He's kind of looking the other way as he knows, he keeps track of what's going on his floor. He knows that Cassian is trying to do something, but he as long as it doesn't affect him, he doesn't care. But he's not going to rock the boat until that final line, and he when he realizes, because when the doctor tells him that, oh man, no, when my time's up, I'm not getting out, nobody's getting out, like there's no such thing as getting out here. Then instead of turning to Cassian and saying, old chum, I've rethought this, and I think I'll join you. They show us through Cassian saying, how many guards? Never more than 12. All of a sudden, his demeanor has changed. He's on board. He is going to help with this escape. And that's exciting for a few reasons. One, I'm excited to see how they escape. Two, it gives us a tidbit of what might be involved. If Andy Serkis can pull some strings, he might be able to, you know, do some key thing that helps get Cassian out of there. Now, personally, I'm fearing for his life because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think he's making it out. Because we don't see him in Rogue One,
Right,
but
right.
plus they've got to get that genetic code to make uh,
Make
Snoke
Snoke. Yeah,
out of
exactly.
Andy
Yeah.
Serkis. But
Last episode of the podcast, I talked about how it would be really cool if Andy Serkis leaves at some point. That Kino
you
leaves at some point, and then immediately another version of him walks back in the door to be in charge. I was almost right because the doctor
almost.
tells Cassian and Kino that the reason that everyone on the second level was all pissed off and then they all got killed was because the people in charge of the prison screwed up, and a guy who left 4 walked in the door on 2. So like the same guy went out and then came back in, just in a different level. I'm trying to figure out how the Imperials would have screwed up that badly. Like, obviously that means no one ever leaves, but does that mean that everyone just ends up on some other faraway level? Or were they supposed to have killed that guy, but then they didn't, and so they accidentally lost him in the shuffle and just sent him back down to the work floor? I don't know how they screwed
I
that up.
I think that their general practice is take the prisoner who has reached the end of their days, mind wipe them, put them on a new level, and somehow maybe it was alien physiology, maybe it was just budget cuts. The mind wipe didn't take on a particular person. So when they got in on the other level, instead of saying, "Oh yeah, I was just arrested for loitering in an imperial mall," they said, "I've actually been here for X amount of time."
Or maybe they did mind wipe that guy, but when he walked in, there was somebody on that floor that knew him because the
Hmm.
prisoners are surreptitiously communicating with each other across levels. And I'm not sure that the warden and his friends are astute enough to realize that the prisoners are communicating with each other. And somebody was all like, wait, isn't that Joe Bob who was just on level 4? And they're like, oh my God, you're right.
That might actually be the case because the person went from level 4 to level 2,
Hmm.
which means if that person had been communicating with somebody on level 3, the person on level 3 might have looked down to level 2 and said, "Hey, wait a minute. That
Yeah,
guy
that guy's just
yesterday
left. Yeah.
was up there going, Today is my last day. I'm getting out." However, they would sign that.
Today is my last day. Now go steal third. Good times.
According to these hand signs, either we are getting doom or a basket of fruit. Not sure which. Oh no. I
Okay.
see.
Can you
Back.
hear me now? Yes. All right.
I can hear you now. All right. For editing purposes, you went out at about minute marker 13.
Okay. I'll figure it out. Okay. So continuing on. Question 2. What did you like least about this episode?
Uh, Honestly, I think the part I like least was Mon Mothma's cousin.
Okay.
And her name's escaping me. That's how much it was my least favorite.
Vel. Her name is Vel.
Oh, yes. So yeah, she was part of the Aldani mission. She was kind of the leader of the dissonance there, and it just felt a little soap opera ish.
Hmm.
That this character that we've known for these many episodes, it turns out is secretly the cousin of this other character that we already knew from this other thing. And next week, when her twin sister shows up,
Ay, Dios mío, el comedor. Sorry, little telenovela reference for you there. Yes, so I could see where that was your least favorite part of the episode. It is a little soap opera like, but at a certain point, anytime you have a political drama, you can veer into that territory there. So that's what they have done.
Yeah, I didn't hate their interactions. The actual scenes themselves were okay. Um, but one thing that I've really liked about Andor so far is we don't have Luke and Leia. We don't have Skywalkers. We don't have the Organas. We don't have all of the people that we're used to. This tight, close knit family that's somehow central to everything that's going on in the galaxy.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then we find out that, well, actually, one of the characters is already related to somebody else. But
Yeah, yeah. Although at least Mon Mothma is not related to the Skywalkers, so
that is true. That helps. All right.
yeah.
Well, Scott, what was your least favorite part of the episode?
Okay, so the part that I disliked the most, and I think I was supposed to dislike it, so maybe this is all according to plan. Cyril Karn stalking Daedra at ISB and his very much "I am now your creepy internet boyfriend" kind of vibe. Oh
He just
yeah,
wanted to give her a personal in person thanks. And to do that, simply went and stood outside her place of employment for who knows how long, how many days in a row. Yeah, that was kind of creepy.
yeah, it was super creepy, and like their relationship is the textbook definition of toxic at this point,
Hmm.
and I'm concerned that Daedra is so cut off from any other type of humanity and so wrapped up in her work that eventually she's going to be all, "Ooh, there's a boy who's paying attention to me," and I'm just like, "No, please don't do this," but I think they are.
I hope they don't. And I like it if they don't, because not every character needs to be in a relationship.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I first, when we first saw these two characters, I thought, they're going to meet at some point, and I can kind of see where this is going. They're going to, be like, oh yes, we love the Empire so much, we're perfect for each other, and I'm glad that they haven't done that to this point. Obviously, one of them is into the other,
yeah.
but they don't need to be a couple. They can each do their own thing.
Yeah. I hope that you're right because the whole thing just totally skeeved me out. And I'm like, oh, no, thank you. Nope, nope, no, thank you. But
But I
I'm
agree with you.
concerned that they're going to use it as an opportunity to introduce the, weird toxic relationship couple into Star Wars, which will simply add to their villainy because they're both just ew.
Very ew. Yeah, but I think you're right that we're supposed to dislike that part. Um,
Yeah,
so,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
Exactly.
in that sense, in terms of the show meeting its goals, I liked that part, even though I disliked that part.
Right,
If
right.
that makes sense. Like,
Yes,
I
yes.
disliked it because it's kind of like in wrestling when you have a heel
Yeah,
character and
yeah.
they're
I
supposed to
love
be the
to
bad guys.
hate that
I hate that
guy.
guy.
Yeah,
Hate him so much, but the good heels you love to hate.
yeah, yeah, totally. Okay, so question number three: what connections did you draw to the rest of the Star Wars galaxy?
Yeah, so we were talking about this the other day, and Andor just doesn't have that many connections to the rest of the Star Wars galaxy, except for the big obvious ones that we've talked about throughout the whole season with Mon Mothma, with Saw Gerrera, with the ISB. It's not like Kenobi, where we were picking out little details in every episode of, oh, well, this is a parallel to this specific thing, and this was a parallel to this specific thing. They just don't have that here. And I think that's great, but it makes this question a lot harder to answer. So,
Yes, yes.
so about the only thing that I have is seeing the torture that they put Bix through.
Hmm.
Is a bit of a parallel to Darth Vader going into Leia's cell with the floating droid that has the hypo needle on it,
The
and you,
ITO droid.
mhm, yep, and you know that she's about to get tortured, and the her resistance to the mind probe is considerable. I'm wondering if we'll have a similar thing with Bix, where her resistance to the torture is considerable.
I
Um,
don't know. It seems like she's given them some stuff already. So,
yeah,
of
so
course, that
we'll see.
torture is was incredibly insidious.
Yes,
Yeah, the auditory torture. Oh my gosh, that's just amazing. And an interesting,
Amazingly evil.
yes,
just,
amazingly
just to
evil.
clear that up.
Yes, yes, astonishingly bleak. Yeah. The and the nature of it, the cries for help from the children of an alien species that got wiped out, is very reminiscent of some Dark Horse Comics, Star Wars comic book era stuff with weird auditory aliens happening back in the 1990s. Although that isn't actually my connection that I was going to mention, but that's a pretty good one. And in fact, you're right about that scene being reminiscent of Leia's torture in Episode 4, because the scene right after they put the headphones on, or put Bix into that room, the door closes and the camera follows it down and
Hmm.
then hooks to the feet of the trooper, of the Imperial officer who marches by, and then we follow him up as he heads off down the corridor. It's an exact shot for shot camera angle matching when Leia was in there with the ITO droid in Episode 4, and the door slams shut and George Lucas stays on the door as it goes down, then hooks to the feet of some Death Star trooper and follows him off as he marches down the corridor. A very awesome homage of an actual shot for shot remake of, and this is what happens right before they torture you in Star Wars.
Yeah, so that's too precise to be an accident.
Yeah, exactly. My connection to the rest of the Star Wars galaxy answer is actually, we haven't mentioned this yet, but the Imperial Senate Chamber. So the Senate chamber with the floaty pods and people turning off their lights and stuff. Although the turning off of the lights, I think, was a new thing. I don't remember that happening in other points.
Well, they had to replace a lot of those pods after Episode 3
True.
because Palpatine and
And
Yoda
and Yoda wrecked the shop.
really messed up a whole lot of them.
Yeah, yeah,
So maybe they just did some, improvements all the way around.
yeah, yeah.
Of course, also we haven't really seen people checking out of debates like that before. In Episode 1, everybody was up in arms, not checking out. And I don't know that we didn't really see the Senate much in Episode 2, and of course in Episode 3 they were just wrecking the place. So
Yeah. Although I remember in Episode 1 when the pods would float while you were the one
mhm.
who was recognized. I don't think we've seen them do
We
that.
haven't seen them do that
Yeah,
anymore.
maybe they took that feature away because they were like, "This is too contentious," or
This
Palpatine
is
was just
this is too dangerous. A random Sith Lord and Jedi Master will start throwing these things around unless we bolt them to the wall.
right, right, yeah. Okay, so custom question time. Nathan, what do you got for question 4?
Well, I mentioned it a little bit in the parallels, but Bix, she's being tortured. What's going to happen with her? And this is a very open-ended question, and I don't have a great answer. So, Scott, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think that she will keep resisting the torture as much as she can when it comes to giving them the location of Andor himself or any kind of hints about where to find him. I think she's given up some stuff already, but stuff that she doesn't consider to be that important. And I think that she's going to resist to the point where the wailing sound of the dying alien children torture is going to make her go insane, and we'll have a throw back, no, a flash forward, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, to the idea that when Bor Gullet interrogates you at Saw Gerrera's camp, there's a chance that you come out insane. And so I think that this will be, Bix is going to be like a portent of that, because these alien sounds will drive her to madness and she won't. And then Deidre will get super upset with Dr. Garofalo, or whatever his name was, because it will render Bix a useless prisoner. And she might end up in a fit of rage. Deidre kills Dr. Garofalo, and that's why nobody else in the Empire knows how to do this torture anymore, because, she offed the guy that invented it, and that's why we never see it again. Because if it's as effective as they say it is, I mean, you would think they'd be using it all the time. Mind probes are for chumps. Let's link her listen to the most annoying song in the galaxy. This is the song that does not end. That's actually what they're playing in the headphones. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends. Some people started singing it, not knowing what it was, and they'll keep
Please,
singing it
please
forever just
stop.
because. I'll
I
tell
will
you
give you what
anything.
information you need. I will give it to you. Oh,
Anyway, Yeah, so that's my prediction. She is going to actually go insane, and then Daedra will kill off the doctor because she's all mad at him for ruining her prisoner. What do you think's going to happen?
Well, I have kind of a similar prediction, but you know, Cassian Andor, yeah, not Cassian. The show is called Andor. Andor is a bit grittier than most of the Star Wars we've seen to this point. Heroes die.
Mm,
I think she might die, and that could lead to a similar result where Daedra is like, you have wasted this intelligent asset. Um, you know, we're never going to do this again. Even if she doesn't kill the guy, she may say, this is useless. Torture that kills the person doesn't
hmm.
give us information.
Right,
Um,
right.
that's a possibility. But you said something that made me think of another possibility, not of something that would happen to Bix, but what might be happening to her. The species that she's hearing, could it be a Borgullet?
Oh yeah, it could be, and that could be why Saw Gerrera thinks it's so fitting that he has one that he uses that's for almost a similar purpose about
Yeah,
mental interrogation of the prisoners, but because Saw is always the slightly fractured mirror of stuff happening in Imperial space. So like he's the almost rebellion version of Darth Vader, if you will, as he progressively gets more injured and has more parts of his body replaced, right down to the fact that eventually he has to in Rogue One do the breathing thing, you know. And
and he
so
was trained by Anakin himself.
and he was trained by Anakin, yeah. So yeah, I could definitely see Borgullet species is the one that the children made the wailing sound that drives people insane, and that Borgullet was rescued by Saw and his partisans as a big, middle finger to the Empire for supposedly wiping out all of that species, but not really.
Yeah. Okay, that's my new headcanon. If they don't contradict it, that's what I'm going to assume has happened.
Yeah, that's kind of cool, and I still want a Borgullet action figure. Anyone at Hasbro,
Yeah,
if you're listening, I want a Borgullet Black Series figure with flexible tentacly things to
that
interrogate.
would be excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, cool. Okay, so question 5, I came up with this episode because Derek's not available. What did that final line from Kino mean? And of course, being no more than 12. Does it mean, obviously, it means he's in on let's break out of prison, but has he been thinking about that longer than he lets Cassian know because he definitely had the information right there on the tip of his tongue?
I don't think so. I don't think he's thought a day in his life about getting out, but I think he is very smart. He's very observant. He knows anything that's going to affect the productivity of his room because he's playing against all the other rooms on their level. So he knows what could cause interruptions. So he knows how many guards there are because guards can come in and say on program, and then all of a sudden your whole room is not producing. If they do
Right.
that too many times, you've lost.
Yeah, yeah,
And he wants to be in that top three.
right.
So, um, so I don't think that he's been planning a breakout, but I think he is a wealth of information and will be critical to allowing the breakout.
Okay, okay. I actually think that at one point he was trying to figure out how to break out because he is Mr. Logistics and Mr. Facts and Figures, like you said. And I think that before he really bought in to the idea of, well, wait, I only have like another year's worth of days before I get released, it would take less effort on my part to play nice, excel at production, and get out when I'm done with my sentence than it would for me to come up with some elaborate escape plan. And so he swallowed the thing hook, line, and sinker to continue the ocean metaphor there on that planet. And now that he has seen Olaf die, such a horrible death for the old timer. And the surgeon, the first aid guy, showed up and was like, here's what happened on level 2, and everybody got killed because nobody ever gets out of here. That's all a lie. Um, Now he's really pissed. Kino's really pissed off because he had believed it fully. So not only are they torturing him in the physical and mental ways that they're torturing everybody who works at this facility, but they tortured him essentially emotionally by a huge lie, lying to him by, lying to him about his life, about the nature of his existence, right? It'd be like if you found out that your parents were never your parents and they were just some people that were lying to you about that for whatever reason. Um, you'd be really, really mad at those people but you're also really mad at yourself for falling for it, right? And so that's what Kino is dealing with, and that's why he is just stone faced determined there at the end of the episode here. Never more than 12. We're gonna let's do this. We're gonna break out of this place.
Yeah, and the fact that there's only 12 guards, I think, is amazing. Of course, the whole prison facility is built to where you wouldn't even think of escaping, because how would you escape?
Yeah.
But the overconfidence of the Empire is coming back to bite them again. They're
Well,
so confident.
and in this case, oh, excuse me, they're dealing with having to ramp everything up because of the PORD, which appears to have been passed in a moment of haste and anger, basically, because the emperor is pissed off about all the money being stolen at Aldani, and so they probably went way overboard with the PORD. Shades of the Patriot Act to bring it back to the 21st century, and
Yeah,
so some of that stuff was repealed eventually. And I think that the Empire would have gone that way. The Senate probably gets to the point where they think it's a bad idea, and they're going to try to repeal parts of it, and that's what leads Palpatine to dissolving the Senate.
seems likely. Yes. Um, we mentioned, or we talked about the prisoner who got out on 4 and went back in 2, and why the Empire did that, and how they could have had such a lapse in judgment of allowing that to happen. Maybe it is that the PORD is what's causing that. Like, something in the PORD basically says, yeah, we're not releasing prisoners anymore. And this is the first prisoner whose days were up after the PORD
Yes.
was done. So they said, well, we can't release him. We can't put him back where he was because they'll all know. So let's just throw him into a different level without thinking, oh, yeah, they can talk.
Yeah.
Because after all, they don't listen to the prisoners.
Right. Okay, great. Well, excellent discussion of Andor episode number 9. So we'll take a quick break and let Kevin tell us about all the other shows here on the FPN.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our Fandom Flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast, discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. Please visit our friends on the BQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Kevin. We hope you guys check out some of those awesome podcasts. So, Nathan, a new product for Star Wars was announced this week that is near and dear to both of our hearts because we are avid card game players. And, folks, we are proud to tell you there is an actual new licensed, officially produced by Lucasfilm Star Wars card game product coming down the pike from our friends at Fantasy Flight Games. Now, a lot of you know that we have a love hate relationship with Fantasy Flight Games because of previous experiences with Star Wars the card game, and then our beloved but much maligned Star Wars Destiny customizable dice game, which was really cool idea for a Star Wars game that wasn't necessarily executed with as much care as it needed for a bit of longevity. Now, if Derek were here, he would remind us that Fantasy Flight has a habit of starting out really strong with games and then ceasing to support them after a while. I think that the FFG of old was very much in that mold, although two of their biggest moments of pulling the rug out from under players were beyond their control, with the loss of the Android Netrunner license to Wizards of the Coast, and then the loss of the Warhammer 40,000 license for card games with Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. Although Nathan and I played the heck out of both of those games, and
Yes,
we
we did.
enjoyed them when they were in their life cycle. So we definitely got our money's worth. I would still like to be playing Warhammer 40,000 Conquest today, but alas, it was not to be. And then, of course, with Star Wars card game and Star Wars Destiny, um, I don't really know precisely what happened with both of those games, other than the card game version didn't ever really have as much punch to its success at the beginning as they were hoping. And then, of course, with Destiny, it seemed to have been going like gangbusters at the beginning and then sort of petered off almost immediately as expansion sets were released that weren't necessarily good for the life of the game. But all that is the past. We're here in a whole different section of the past, and that being a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. We're looking at Star Wars, the deck building game. So before we talk about our initial reactions to what's been released about this game, Nathan, why don't you give the listeners a brief primer on what a deck building game is and how that's different than most of the other products that I just talked about?
Yeah. Now, at first glance, when you hear the term deck building game, that doesn't necessarily tell you a whole lot because in a lot of these other games, we also build decks. But in those games, you build your deck first, and then you show up to a game with your deck and face off against your opponent's deck. This type of deck building game is one where you have only a very small preset deck at the beginning of the game, and you actually build your deck through the process of the game. So there is a line of cards in the middle that you can purchase cards from to add to your deck, and you'll cycle through your deck. There's been several other games with this same basic premise. Some of them use a line, some of them don't. Dominion was one of the first ones, but that used stacks of cards instead of a line. But there's been a few different ways. But this one's going to use a line. And one of the coolest features about it is that some of the cards in the middle are marked for rebels, and some are marked for Imperials, and some are neutral. And you choose whether you're playing Imperial or Rebel, but whichever side you're choosing, you can either buy neutral cards and cards that are for your side, or you can sabotage your opponent's cards so that they're not allowed to buy them. So if you want to make sure that your opponent can't buy that Boba Fett, you can sabotage him and say, nope, no Boba Fett for you.
Or if you're playing as the Empire and you don't want the Alliance to have access to Han Solo, you can bounty hunt him, which is basically the same process, but skinned differently because, hey, it's the dark side. And you could have Boba Fett and friends go out and, well, capture Captain Solo so that he is bounty hunted and he is destroyed. That card is removed before the Rebellion player can purchase it from the line of cards in the middle.
Now, the goal in this particular game is to blow up your opponent's bases. Your opponent will start with one base in play, and the first base that you start off with is either Dantooine if you're the Rebels, or Lothal if you are the Empire. But as your base gets destroyed, you get to pick a new one from a deck of bases. So you can choose carefully what your second and third bases are. But be careful, your opponent wins if they manage to destroy all three of your bases. So you want to make sure you get Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and all the really cool characters, the main characters, so you can go destroy your opponent's bases.
Yep, and I do like that the starter deck cards, because at the beginning of the game, the Empire has a 10 card starter deck and the Rebellion has a 10 card starter deck. Those don't have the double sided text on them, or the upside down text, if you will, that allows for sabotaging and bounty hunting, because you start the game with them in your deck, so your opponent never gets the chance to destroy them in that way. They'll never be hanging out on the Galaxy row. There's also a small section of duplicate multiple copies of the Outer Rim Pilot. That is a stack of cards on the far right of the Galaxy row from the perspective of the Rebellion. That anybody can buy when it's their turn to buy stuff if there isn't a good enough choice for them in the Galaxy row. And I note that those also cannot be sabotaged or. I'm just going to go with sabotaged as the verb, but bounty hunting is the term for the Empire. It's very reminiscent of another deck building game that Nathan and I have played on occasion called Star Realms. But of course, Star Realms was its own independent intellectual property that A, didn't have any of the Star Wars stuff in it, and B, didn't actually have, as far as I could tell, this whole sabotage mechanic, and C, you didn't have a separate deck for each player that formed your collection of bases. So I think that they've given it a pretty good amount of Star Wars feel and flavor by introducing a couple of those new mechanics. And there's one more mechanic that we haven't talked about yet that is definitely there to give it a Star Wars feel. The game also incorporates a small chart off to the side that shows the balance of the Force between the dark side and the light side. When you take certain actions in the game or make certain purchases, from the Galaxy row, you gain a certain number of force points, moving the little marker either up or down your section of the chart. And if the force is fully with the light side or the dark side, you'll get an extra resource point that you can use to purchase cards every turn. But also, certain cards will say, if the force is with you, do blank or do X. And so if you purchase or play that card when the balance of the force is with the light side or the dark side, and your team has the balance, then you can do whatever the cool special extra bonus feature is.
For example, Luke Skywalker says, if the Force is with you, destroy a capital ship your opponent has in play. Capital ships are important because they protect your base. So Luke can run in, destroy a Star Destroyer, and then go attack Lothal.
Yeah. So it's interesting to note that Luke has 6 firepower for use later on, but he does cost 8 resources, so it's probably going to take you a while to get built up to the point where you can recruit Master Skywalker.
Probably, but if you take out an entire Star Destroyer with him, that's probably worth it.
Yeah, totally. Now, note, because it is a deck building game, when you purchase. Actually, I don't know if what I'm about to say is correct. So we're looking at that effect on Luke. If the Force is with you, destroy a capital ship your opponent has in play. That would be when you play Luke, not when you purchase Luke, right?
I believe that is correct,
Okay.
although I might have to read a little closer to make sure that is true.
Yeah, because I note that in a deck building game, when you buy the card from the Galaxy row, or whatever the central section of shop is called, you don't put the card into play. You take it and you put it in your discard pile, because whenever your draw deck is empty in a deck building game, you reshuffle the discard pile, flip it over, and keep going as you draw new cards. So, yeah, I think that's essentially what happened. You'd get that on the turn in which you played Master Skywalker. He would also give you 6 firepower and 2 force points when the turn that you played him. So the force points, of course, would help you get to the point where you could use Luke's special text of, if the force is with you, destroy a capital ship your opponent has in play. So important to note the order in which you play your cards to trigger the force abilities, at least as far as we understand it in this rudimentary introduction of the game. For all I know, the force balance thing might only check at the start of the turn. So, please note that Darth Vader, of course, gets a "while the force is with you" text as well, and his simply says, "While the force is with you, Darth Vader gains +1 firepower." So that would raise him all up to a mighty 7 firepower and 2 force points, just like his son.
I believe you mean 10 firepower.
6 + 1 is 7, right?
No, while the Force is with you, Darth Vader gains 4 firepower.
I thought that was +1 firepower.
No.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, that makes him even better.
Yes, because Luke is 6 firepower.
Yeah.
Darth Vader starts at the same as Luke, but no, I've zoomed in. This is definitely a 4, so he
Excellent.
can go.
Okay. Well, good. Because I was kind of thinking that +1 isn't nearly as impressive as destroy a capital ship.
No, it would not. But +4. I mean, that still may not be as powerful in a certain sense because that may be overkill. But it's the Empire. There's no kill like overkill.
That's true. Although we don't know yet for sure if you can. So in Star Realms, the game that this is very similar to, when you have a collection of firepower, you make a pool of it, and then you can divvy it up into individual targets. So if that's the case in Star Wars Deck Building Game, Vader could just add 4 to your total pool and make it where you can destroy even more stuff. But if you do have to send individual units after a target, then yes, 10 might be a bit much. Although that means that Darth Vader has the power himself to take out all of Corellia, a light side base that, sorry, not Corellia.
Mon Cala.
Yes, thank you. To take out all of Mon Cala, a light side base that has a defense value of 10. So,
Apparently, he likes good fried octopus.
he does. He needs some flan, and they wouldn't give it to him, so he's coming to smash the planet.
It's like, do you know how we make calamari flan?
I pulp all of you Monkal and squish them together. So, also of note, a cool effect. So the whole sabotage thing involves double-sided cards. So the cards printed text upside down one way or the other, which I love as a nice little nod to Decipher's classic Star Wars CCG, where locations had text on both ends of the card that were oriented toward the player of that side. Once you sabotage something like Director Krennic, you also, in addition to getting rid of that card before the Empire can buy Krennic, we were this close. You get a reward. And in the case of Krennic, if you sabotage him, you need to use 5 of your firepower to do it, but you will gain 3 resources and 2 force points as a reward. So I'm interested to see what all things are given as rewards. I can't quite make it out, so maybe Nathan, you can zoom in and help me, but in the stay on target attack diagram here, the scout trooper for the Empire has a reward if you sabotage him for 2, but I have no idea what that says because it is the very, very tiny, and I am the old.
Yes. Let's see. I can make out reward. I can make out some of the words, but
It
but they
says
don't all
something.
make sense. It looks like it says exile.
Exile 1 card from your hand or discard pile.
Yes,
Okay,
I think
so
that's
I'm
exactly. Exile
assuming
probably means removed from game.
yeah, so what you'll want to start doing in like in Star Realms and Dominion and other deck builders is, as the game goes on, you want to winnow out your deck from the starter cards because they are the least efficient. So in this case, if you sabotage that scout trooper as the rebellion, you'll want to start getting rid of your rebel troopers because while they cost 0, they only generate 2 firepower and they don't do anything else.
Because you'd rather get Luke Skywalker than yet another rebel trooper.
Yep, and exiling cards increases the odds of you drawing a quote unquote a really good hand. So you can reduce the randomness and make sure that it is too random to be random.
Right. I would love to see. This is very much themed Rebel versus Empire, but there's a lot of storyline with that. I would love to see Dedra and Cassian and characters from Andor. I'm sure they're not in here because development on this type of game, it's probably been in the works for over a year at this point.
Yeah, and a lot of the artwork that we see here on these cards, it is drawings and illustrations, not movie or television photographs. So just letting folks know about that. Plenty of this artwork is stuff that we have seen as illustrations from the Galactic Civil War, the classic trilogy era from Fantasy Flight Games for Oh man, are going on 10 years now?
Well, I mean, we've seen it in the card game, the living card game LCG. We've seen some of it in Destiny. We've seen some of it in the role playing game. Um, we've seen some of it in Legion. Even
Yeah.
uh,
The
they, they
picture
they make sure that they get their money's worth out of the art.
Oh, for sure. And plus, this way, since they're reusing art that's already been approved, you don't have to wait in production hell as you're hoping to hear back from the client to say that the art is approved for use. The picture of
Which
Darth
in this case
Vader,
is Disney.
right? Well, we're gonna go with Lucasfilm. We're gonna go with
That's true.
Lucasfilm.
Yes, it is Lucasfilm.
But you're right. You're right. Anyway, the picture of Darth Vader, I believe, is the one from the Star Wars Celebration 2019 Legion model where he's surrounded by hurling
You're right.
rocks.
Yeah.
Although I do see a couple of stormtroopers back behind him in that drawing, so it may just be a zoom in on another drawing that I'm thinking of.
I know I've seen that image for Vader before, though. Yeah, I think it may actually be one of the upgrades from Legion.
Yeah.
The Force power upgrades.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure the Stormtrooper has been used in Legion as well. But yeah, like we said, many of these images have been used before, and I'm sure as they reveal more and more cards, we'll recognize more and more. The Duros spy here, that
Mhm.
is definitely that has definitely been used a few times. Ooh, I just noticed one of the capital ships, and this one's kind of faded. It's kind of off center in the picture, but they have an Imperial carrier, and it is the one from Rebels.
Yes, the big
With,
triangle wedge-shaped
yeah,
ship.
with
Yeah.
the 4 giant docking bays underneath it.
Let's see if we can make out what that says. While Imperial Carrier is in play, each of your fighter units gains. Okay, this time I know for sure 1 firepower.
Yes, and I bet because some of this card, is, like I said, is faded out. I bet it's each of your starfighter units.
Yeah,
So,
I bet so.
I'm sure you can get TIE fighters. There's a Z95 headhunter that we can see half of. So
Although the
actually,
headhunter
you know what?
just says
That
fighter.
just says fighter.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And there's a Y-wing down here that we can see part of that also says fighter. Nope. Exile this card to deal 2 damage to your opponent's base or a capital ship they have in play. Oh yeah. Okay, Y-wing bombing run. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet there's a TIE bomber that does something very similar for the Empire. But be warned, it only takes 1 firepower to bounty the Y-wing.
It does. Nathan, see that Y-wing?
Yeah.
You're going to have to eat some words here. Look to the far right of that picture.
I see Bo Shek.
Sorry, look to the rebellion's perspective far right of that picture.
Oh, of the Y-wing picture itself?
No. Of that row.
With the Duro spy?
Nope. Go on down further. Further down to the stay on target section that's explaining firepower and how you can allocate it.
Oh, okay. The Y-wing apparently appears in 2 different pictures.
It does. That's my bad. So yes, Boshek is to the far left, and to the far right is one Cassian Andor.
Yes. But this particular Cassian Andor is
from Rogue One.
It's from Rogue One. He's on the beach. You can see the beach in the background.
Yeah, he's on
Yeah,
Skyrim. But you know what? It's cool
that Rogue One stuff.
It's cool to see that Rogue One stuff has made it into the game.
Yes, and it's cool to see the Outer Rim pilot is Boshek.
Yep, which means that every game there'll be like 15 Bosheks.
So Boshek is such a minor character from the Star Wars CCG that Decipher made back in the 90s. I'm pretty sure they named Boshek. They named a lot of characters. Honestly, a lot of the world building that we have in Star Wars is due to the Star Wars CCG that Decipher made in the 90s. I found out recently that Wolf Yularen was named by Decipher.
Outstanding. And
now,
of course, Wolf Yularen is an even bigger character now than he ever was back then.
Yep. But Boshek, I'm pretty sure, was named by Decipher as well. He's the guy that Kenobi first asks if he's a pilot who can take him to Alderaan, but he just uses his thumb to say, yeah, Chewbacca here is the one you
Yeah.
want to talk to.
Go talk to the big doggy guy. Yeah. We didn't take a moment to talk about how Princess Leia is also visible in this preview article. She costs 6. When you play her, you get 2 resources and 2 force points. She has the officer trait, and she says, purchase a rebel card from the Galaxy row for free. If the force is with you, place that card on top of your deck. That's good stuff. You can basically stack the deck in your favor.
Yeah, you can get Luke Skywalker. It makes me wonder if there's going to be an Obi-Wan Kenobi, because then you have Leia saying, "Help me, Obi-Wan. You're my only hope."
Yeah, totally. Oh, I just realized there's a U-wing up there in the Galaxy row example as well for the light side.
Yeah, I had a little bit more difficult time reading that one. It looks like it's also a direct damage dealing thing.
Yeah,
but
but it is
doubt.
listed as a transport and not a fighter, so that's pretty cool to see. All right, well, as you can tell, Nathan and I can't wait to get this game and play it. I'm hoping that they do some organized play, although I'm trying to wrap my brain around how you would do a deck building game tournament, but I'm sure we can talk about that.
I don't think it. Well, actually, in this one, I think you could, because this is a heads-up game.
It is head to head, yes.
Fire. So you could actually set up a tournament system for that, as long as everybody's using the same. Well, I don't want to call it a deck, but the same base cards.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could absolutely do that. And I'm hoping that at Gen Con, that balance of the Force template, we've got 3 spots on the light side, 3 spots on the dark side, and then the spot in the middle. That's just ripe for, here's a tournament prize, customized balance of the Force thing.
Yeah,
That
totally.
you can use in your home games. Doesn't affect gameplay. Just something you can use to keep track in your own game.
Excellent. Yeah, cool. All right, well, I think that just about does it for this episode of What a Piece of Junk. We want to thank everybody for joining us. Nathan, why don't you let people know where they can find us out there on the old interwebs? But first, we can't skip Derek's favorite part of the show just because he isn't here. We will talk about what Star Wars t-shirts are we wearing this week. So, Nathan, what you got?
I am wearing the 4 baby Grogus. I love this shirt. I've got a hat that isn't designed to go with it, but let's be honest, goes with it. That is also black and has a Grogu on it. Excuse me.
Don't die.
Don't worry, I won't. That was just baby Grogu doing the magic hand thing on me.
Do the magic hand thing.
Yes, the great t-shirt. Everybody loves Grogu. So this is one that I see people looking at even when they don't recognize some of my other Star Wars t-shirts.
And like the plebes that they are, they just refer to him as Baby Yoda.
Yeah, that's true. But, I know in my heart his name is Grogu.
Although I did love Pelimoto's response. Grogu? Well, that's unfortunate. All right. So I am wearing Juan Solo from Chewie's Mexican chain. It's Han Solo, but of course he's wearing a sombrero, and instead of carrying his traditional DL-44 blaster pistol, he has red hot chili peppers, perhaps a more impressive and fearsome weapon than a random blaster at your side. Wonder if he would consider those hokey religion and ancient weapons. Huh. Anyway, if you guys out there want to get your own cool What a Piece of Junk t-shirt or mug or mousepad or whatever, please head over to the FPN store over at tpublic.com. Search up Fandom Podcast Network and you can find some cool, awesome merch for our show, as well as plenty of other excellent shows here on the FPN. All right, now, Nathan, let us know where we can find the show out there on the internet, please.
Yes, there's several places that you can find the show on the internet. You can find us on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Play, YouTube. Now on Podbean, The master feed is fpnet.podbean.com, and we are the FPNet on the Podbean app as well. You can find us on Facebook, What a Piece of Junk, a Star Wars podcast. Even though he is not here today, Derek does run that, and he posts lots of cool stuff. You can also email us at whatapieceofjunkpod@gmail.com, or you can reach us on Twitter at whatwars, or Instagram. You can reach the entire Fandom Podcast Network under Fandom Podcast Network. Now, if you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts, we'd love for you to give us a review. That helps other people find our podcast, and also lets us know what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, how we can improve, and what you'd like to hear from us. Scott, tell us a little bit more about those Apple Podcast reviews.
Well, look, we put a lot of stock into the score and the number of stars that you give to us. In fact, all of the prisoners who are working below decks to keep the Drunken Gungan running are judged on their star output, and they all want to be in the top 3 tables. Wait, no, I'm sorry, we don't do that anymore. But just kidding.
Right, wait, anymore?
We do want you to give us as honest a review as possible, but we do love those 5-star reviews because you do not want to upset the Wookiee.
That's right.
All right. Well, we want to thank you all for joining us. And as always, please hit us up between shows in a variety of ways to let us know your thoughts, your ideas, your comments, and suggestions. But until next time, please remember to always respect each other. And please remember to always respect each other's fandom. All right, Nathan, punch it.